IPMNation.com.
All natural being. Warning, all natural being with Brian Brawdy is designed to shake your sense of self to the core.
It's full context psychology with an empowering twist, a philosophical loofah for your soul.
For those of you not ready or comfortable releasing your inner superhuman, listener discretion is advised.
Here's your host,
Brian Brawdy.
Welcome to All Natural Being, the #1 rated show here on IPMNation.com. And as I say, to kick off most every show, I think we're #1, if you want to know the truth, because this show is about you. Not the watered-down version, right? Not the you that settles for melancholy, not the you that settles for blah. And I thought about it earlier this morning when I was writing this show. I thought about if I had one wish for you, it would be that you had a little placard that you could put right in front of your forehead that would say, under new management. Because that's the goal of All Natural Being. Whether you're listening live 7 to 8 a.m. Eastern, or to the replay at 11 a.m. or 8 p.m. Eastern, or you're listening on iTunes or any of the other cool places that the good folks at IPM Nation have decided to put All Natural Being, regardless of when or where you're listening to this show, that's my goal. That's my goal. To have your mind under new management. Under new management. But you're the manager. You're the guy or the girl. You're the one that decides. Is your mind going to work for you? Or are you going to work for your mind? And we've got a lot to get to today, including a really cool special edition Time magazine called The Science of Happiness that a friend of mine suggested that I run out and pick up, and I did, and let me tell you something else. So I want to get to that in today's show. And I also wanted to remind you, if you want to get in touch, 331-684-7685, which of course is 331-684-SOUL. You can hit me up on Facebook. And the only reason I chuckle is I'm thinking I'm going to Facebook now through my phone this week because, if you've been listening, you know that my iPad or my laptop computer decided to go on sabbatical. Wanted to go to the Apple spa. So I'm down to computer all week long and producing the show with a couple of iPads, a couple of phones, a notebook, some pens. So when I say check me out on Facebook, I'm doing it on a very small screen on my phone, but you can check me out on Facebook. Contact me there. Facebook.com/Brian Brawdy Official. And also on Twitter at Brian Brawdy or allnaturalbeing.com. Stop by, give me your email. I'll send you an email back, and we'll be ready to go because I really do listen to the comments, the critiques, and some of the questions that are people that are asking, and I try to incorporate each and every one of those when I can. If it's hate mail, if it's a little tough, I don't incorporate it because there's really no reason. Just imagine some of the worst things that you could say philosophically about a person's mindset. Then you know what some of the hate mail says. So I won't go ahead unless it's in our hate mail section, which I'm working on right now as well. We'll go ahead and throw that in once a week so you can hear some of those things. But outside of that, I try to incorporate everything that people suggest, that they ask, that they kind of hint at, that they would like to hear, that they would like to discuss. So continue. allnaturalbeing.com. Drop me your email. I'll send you mine, and we'll go ahead and hook up that way as well. So before we get into it today, I want to talk about the anaerobic aphorism. Failure is the footbridge to success. Now, I know it's become really popular of late to say, oh, you should fail better, you should fail harder, you should fail faster. None of that means that we want to adopt failure, that we want to date failure, that's going to be our operating mindset. It simply means that, hey, sometimes we give it a shot and it doesn't work. It simply means that fate's job is to take our plans and shred them. That's what it's supposed to do. Fate is supposed to attempt to derail us. So today, in addition to reviewing one of the opening chapters for Time, a special edition Time, The Science of Happiness, I wanted to talk a little bit about that. Fate's job, and we're going to do it in a couple of the different segments. Let's jump in right away to that. So, first one. Segment number 1 is going to be called Serial Achieving. The subtitle is The Problem with Human Gettingness. Now, you and I have talked about this before. We know the difference between a human being and a human getting. A human getting is always longing. A human being is always content. And if it's true, as I believe it is, that the universe doesn't give you what you ask for, it gives you what you already are, then if you're longing, if you're a human getting, you get more to long for. If you're a human being, a grateful human being, you get more to be grateful for. It really is that quid pro quo. So when I see these people getting burned by The Secret, going, oh yes, I picture myself alongside of a red Lamborghini because that'll mean I've arrived if I drive a Lamborghini. I guess I'm theorizing. That's what they believe. Driving a Lamborghini is going to get them. But here's the scoop. If the universe catches you petitioning, begging, treating the divine like a giant ATM or a short order cook, you're not going to get the target of your longing. You're going to get more longing. But if you wake up and you go, you know what? Thanks for the ride. What a great gig this is, being dropped here in the labyrinth, challenged to use all of my natural resources in order to be able to pull off a run at this life. You do that, then the universe goes, hey, she gets it. Hey, he's on top of it here. He's on to us. And if you're grateful, you get more to be grateful for. All right, so we'll get into that a little bit more in Serial Achieving. And that's what I think will also bring in the Time magazine article. Segment number 2 is going to be called A Temperament for the Tumultuous. And I wanted to write a subtitle for that. That I'm calling The Balm of Silver Linings. Simply because failure has a flash-in-the-pan shelf life. Failure is never a sentence unless it's self-imposed. Life in the labyrinth is supposed to be tumultuous. And for those that prepare for it, those that are ready for whatever fate throws at it in the moment, they're like, not optimistic, I'm not pessimistic, I'm not happy, I'm not sad, it just is. I'll handle whatever the universe throws at me. So, segment number 2, Temperament for the Tumultuous, with a balm of silver linings, which in a certain way dovetails with segment number 3 this morning, and I'm calling that one The Duality of Destiny and Fate. And why I say it's the blend of destiny and fate that is the mixed bag of mental health. The good, the bad, the ups, the downs, the lefts, the rights, the pivots, the swerves, the collections, the unravelings. Whatever we find, the tragedies, the triumphs, the cataclysms, the celebrations, whatever we find in that moment, it's a mixed bag of those things, whatever the labyrinth brings to us. We know we have our destiny. Fate does what it can, is the shredder, to shred our plans. But when we look at it as a mixed bag, we're going to take whatever happens. No dead ends, only cul-de-sacs. No stop signs, only U-turns. And in the labyrinth, every intersection allows a U-turn. And we're going to look at that in segment 3. Now, in segment 4, which I might bump up to segment 2 now that I think about it, because it's kind of a little bit of an autobiography. It's the segment where I get to talk to you about why I think the article that we're going to read from Time magazine is, in fact, spot on. So I'm always open to the debate between having goals and being grounded in the moment. And we're going to talk about that in segment 4. We're going to talk about the sobriety of focus. No intoxicating memories or fairy tales, just the sobriety of focus, of showing up, staying in the moment. And you're going to learn why I say my only compass is a magnifying glass. That's what we're going to be talking about today. All right, let's jump right into it. Segment number one, we're calling Serial Achieving. Don't forget, before I get too far into it, 331-684-7685. Hit me up on Facebook, on Twitter. You know how to get there, allnaturalbeing.com, and we'll go ahead and jump into it. So, a friend of mine says to me, oh, have you seen this new magazine out, special edition, Time Magazine, The Science of Happiness? And I go up to the counter and I look at it and I go, oh, look at all those emoticons. Is that what they're called? Emoticons? All those little faces that you can put on your smartphone or your tablet now, so it's covered in that. And so I walk up, go to buy the magazine. The young lady at the counter says to me, oh, that'll be $16. And I go, well, does it come with like a bag of chips? What? It's like, it's barely 100 pages. Oh, well, that's one of their special editions, Time Magazine special edition. So it's special, all right. So it's like $15, probably 16 or 17 in Canada. So just be forewarned, when you go up there, it'll set you back a little bit. But nonetheless, I found one of the topics near and dear to my heart. It's called serial achieving. It's our bucket list. It's our to-do list. It's that laundry list of carrots at the end of the stick. And I'm very glad, very excited to have a report from Dr. Emma Sapala. Now, she's written a book called The Happiness Track, How to Apply the Science of Happiness to Accelerate Your Success. Now, I haven't read the book, but I can tell you after reading this brief article, I went ahead and downloaded the book on my Kindle, so I'll be getting to that soon. And this is absolutely one of the authors I would like to talk to one day. So as we set up the interviews coming in July and August, and most certainly down the road, when we set up some of these author interviews, this is absolutely an individual that I'd like to have on the show, because I think she would be great at helping us clarify the concept of the battle between human beings and human gettingness. About being and getting. So I wanted to read just a little excerpt from the article. Quote, whether you're a web designer, a teacher, or a firefighter, or an army officer, you are encouraged to keep checking things off the to-do list, amassing accomplishments, and focusing your efforts on the future. There's always something more you can do to further yourself at work. An extra project, a responsibility that you can take on, more schooling you can complete to ensure a promotion, or an additional investment to wager on just in case. There's always that coworker who is putting in longer hours, showing you that you too can and should do more. And so you should strive nonstop to exceed your goals. Don't just think about setting them, but setting them and exceeding them. Constantly playing catch up with your ambitious to-do list. Why? She asks. Because you live by the faulty theory that if you want to succeed, you need to continually be getting things done and moving on to the next goal as quickly as possible. Come on, I got someplace to be. Your mind is, I put that in, by the way, quote, your mind is always on the next task, the next accomplishment, the next person you need to talk to. In the process, you sacrifice the present, foregoing personal happiness, enduring negative feelings, and tremendous stress because you believe the eventual payoff is worth it. As a consequence, you get caught up in the frantic and anxious workahol. You become a workaholic. You may find yourself asking, what am I doing right now to help me reach my future goals? And if you're not asking that of yourself, then you've got a manager or a partner or colleagues that probably are. And if you answer, I'm not doing anything right now, then chances are pretty good you're going to feel bad. Thus, the need to constantly be doing something to improve yourself. You're caught up in the compulsion to constantly achieve, always adding meat to your bio and feathers to your cap. You haven't finished one task before your mind is on to the next one. The only problem is, in terms of the studies, and I'm looking forward to getting to it in the book, I'm pretty sure she's going to tell us what you and I already know. Is that the reason we're so hooked on getting things done is that we have a faulty belief that the payoff comes from achievement. An award or a larger savings account will ultimately lead to the biggest payoff of all, happiness, but it doesn't. Quote, we have the illusion that success, fame, and money, fill in the blank, that we are chasing will bring us some kind of lasting fulfillment. We often expect that we'll be happier when we get this or that project over with. You and I guilty of this? Where we act as a human getting? Oh, in order for me to be happy, in order for me to be fulfilled, in order for me to be successful, I got to have a better this, a better that. I got to find a better mate. I've got to be a better version of myself. And there are references in the article, another study done at Harvard, a couple doctors there that say only about 50% adults today spend only about 50% of their time in the present moment. I saw an article yesterday where they said, I think it was like 11 and a half hours the average adult in the United States watches television. And that we go to our smartphones to check mail or calls or send a text or tap on this and that. We do it 2,100 times a day, according to this article. So we're so content dragging ourselves out of the moment, hoping that if we continue to multitask, then we're finally going to have the success we're looking for. In her article, she says, quote, paradoxically, or in her book, paradoxically, slowing down and focusing on what is happening in front of you right now, being present instead of always having your mind on the next thing, will make you much more successful. Expressions like live in the moment or carpe diem sound like cliches, yet science backs them up robustly. Research shows that remaining present, rather than constantly focusing on what you have to do next, will make you more productive and happier. Moreover, it will give you more of that elusive quality we attribute to most successful people. And this is her word. You ready? She says charisma. So when you're focused in the moment, when you're grounded, when you show up, as opposed to tapping out of this particular moment and all in time, as we say, in the unimaginable power of living in the present moment, when you show up, when you're grounded in the now, according to the studies, you're perceived as more charismatic. So think about that for a second. Human gettings, everyone running around trying to get more. Consumerism at its finest. As you've probably heard me say before, the serpent in the garden was the first salesperson. Oh, let me show you what I have over here. And if you buy right now and you bite on this tasty piece of fruit, let me show you what you're going to get. Ignore all the critics of this new philosophy. Just bite this thing right here, and I'll throw in the larger version of the two. So if you have a loved one back home, you can take it back to them, and they can buy into this mashugana as well. Start of human gettingness. I don't know how long we were in the garden, but if you go along with that as an idea, wasn't too long before we became consumers. Before we became serial achievers. I need more. So if you get a chance, got a little bit of extra scratch to pick up the special time edition, The Science of Happiness. They've got all kinds of cool stories in there. Let me just say real quick. Let me see. Secrets of a Happier Life. Mind is one of the titles. 9 ways to feel more joy. Well, who doesn't want to feel more joy? How to bounce back. What makes us happy? Now, it says life here, so this would be an interesting one. 14 ways to jump for joy. The parenting paradox. Can money buy happiness? How joy affects your health. Now, there's a lot of debate. People say, well, if you're happy, you're going to be healthier. Some say, well, because you're healthy, you're happier. Others say, because you're happier, you're healthier. It's the carrot or the chicken or the egg debate, but there's a pretty good article here that I thought. And then the art of being present. Another chapter is going to be, does spirituality make us happy? 7 reasons to be mindful. Here's one you and I talk about all the time, the power of gratitude, right? That's the difference between a human being and a human getting. Human gettings never freaking satisfied. Always want something more. Go. Let's collect this. Let's become pack rats. Let's get another tchotchke. Let's get another bell or a whistle, or let's upgrade to right? One of the chapters here is the power of gratitude. You and I know that gratitude is the grease of the human mind. And in any metric for achieving stunning success, any metric has to have gratitude, has to have a sense of thankfulness, a sense of reverence for who you are, where you are, and an understanding of what you're going to do about it. Then the last couple of chapters in the magazine, the geography of happiness and states of happiness. So if you get a chance, hey, if you're going to be going anywhere, if you're going to hang out, maybe you're just hanging out in the house on the couch, reading some different things. This might not be a bad special edition of time to go ahead and pick up. All right, let's move on. Before I do, 331-684-7685, 331-684-SOUL. Go ahead. Let's hook up that way, or, of course, allnaturalbeing.com. Leave your email. I'll fire one back. Well, not right now during the show, right? But as soon as I'm off, give me your ideas, give me the things that you're thinking about, and we'll go from there. Oh, I should also have to tell you, we don't have time to get to it today, but my defense of Justin Timberlake, that was most certainly, that was the spark of some comments, some people feeling strongly one way or the other. So hopefully we can get to that. Maybe we'll look to get to that tomorrow. All right, so segment number 2, let's jump in. The temperament for the tumultuous, or as I like to call it, the balm of silver linings. That's because failure really does. It has a flash in the pan shelf life, right? And we're never sentenced to failure unless that sentence is self-imposed. So failure is just another way. You and I go through the day. Half a dozen times today, I just looked at myself and go, you got to be kidding me, Brian. Why did you do that? Happens all the time. So we look at failures. Let me tell you this little thing. When you do TV, except for live TV, they kind of frown on this in live TV, except for live TV, but when you do tape news segments, or you do television appearances, or you do television commercials or the like, you normally have all of the crew, and then you have the performer. What in some industries they call the talent is in front of the camera, the crew is behind the camera. I can tell you I've worked with some of the most talented photographers and videographers and scriptwriters in the world. I'm always uncomfortable saying that I'm the talent and they're the crew. I think it goes both ways. But the point I'm trying to make is that you'll have all the crew and you'll have a director. So you're there, you wait for the light to go on, someone will holler action, you have your lines, or you have your thoughts, or if you're building a riff, you have a general, like pinball, right? You got some bumpers you're going to bounce back around in between. The director will holler action, and then you'll give it your riff. And he'll go, cut. He'll go, all right, let's give that another shot. Let's another take. Doesn't mean that the first take was a failure. Just means maybe you learned another way of doing the lines, or maybe the director has, give me a little more accent on this word, or give me a little more passion here, or a little less smiling here. So a second take is just a way of getting yourself even deeper into what it is the director wants for this particular shot. So you'll do take 2, take 3, and I have to tell you, it's been my experience, and I've been doing it now for a couple decades at least, performing in front of a live camera and in front of a tape camera, right, if you're going to edit stuff later. I can tell you that most times I'll do 2 or 3 takes, almost like I stretch before I go for a run, or I go to the gym, or I go for a bike ride. It's just stretching, right? I just kind of get into the role, or get into what I'm going to be doing. Technically, each of those first, second, third, maybe sometime fourth takes, technically, they're failures because they're not going to make it to the final cut. So you could say, hey, didn't make it to the final cut? No, then that take was a failure. Yes, although those were the takes that were setting me up for the one that the director is going to love, that the client wants, that tells the news story exactly the way it needs to be. And more times than not, if you're doing live TV, as you probably know, you have a producer in your ear, and he or she is telling you what's going to be coming up. Or if you're doing a live spot, you go to commercial, and then you come back to that segment. The producer will be telling you, hey, look, when you come back, can you do this or that? Doesn't mean your first one was a failure. It just means you're kind of stretching yourself a little bit. You're learning some different ways of doing the same thing. So if it takes 10 takes to get to the one that you really dig, that you're really proud of, that everyone just like stands up and starts to applaud right after the director, she hollers cut. he gives it a thumbs up, everyone starts to applaud. Sometimes that's more than 1 or 2 takes. Maybe it's a 10th take, an 11th take. Who knows? Are they failures? Yes, because they're not going to make the final product. But would you take the opportunity to throw any of those away? Absolutely not. Because those failures, those takes, they all come with a silver lining. What's the silver lining? Silver lining is, without them, I wouldn't have warmed up. I wouldn't be in the perfect position to nail this particular line. So when you have a temperament for the tumultuous, you're not always going to win on the first one. You're not always going to nail the first take. It's tumultuous. There's some back and forth. There's some give and take. You're learning whether it's from other actors or other reporters or from the scene itself. You learn. All natural being. Well, I talk all the time about you're a skin bag full of buried treasure. Well, one of those buried treasures, one of those natural resources is a temperament for the tumultuous. We dig chaos. We dig uncertainty. The mind thrives on it. So the next time you feel as if you've failed, just remember, as shelf lives go, it's a flash in the pan. Give yourself another take. And if you're the director, holler, action. Give yourself a second take, a third take, a fourth take. What do you care? Get to the final thing that you want. And then all those other things, those weren't failures. They were footsteps. Right? They were traumas. They were teaching you how to get to that perfect take, how to get to that perfect one. Oh man, that was a failure. Not unless you impose it as a sentence. If not, it's got a very, very, very short shelf life. And when you channel your all-natural being, you channel your inner superhuman, you realize that you come with a myriad of natural resources. You'll realize that one of them is a temperament for the tumultuous, the rough and tumble. What do you call it all the time? The rough and tumble of the road less traveled. When you're in there, when you've optimized your outlook and you're ready for whatever the labyrinth has to throw at you, then you look at that tumultuous atmosphere. You look at those failures as nothing more than bricks in the final wall, because that's what they are. So the balm of silver linings. The director may not fall in love with your first take. He or she may. You never can tell. But if they don't, you get right back in there. Check your look if that's what it takes. Check your look and get ready to do the line just a little differently. Then that's all it takes to be a success. All right, now, segment 3, which I'm very excited about. It's called The Duality of Destiny versus Fate. This is the mixed bag of mental health. Why I called it the mixed bag of mental health is that by now, if you've been listening, you should know that I believe we are all born with a destiny. Now, we may not know what it is until a certain stage of life, or maybe we're born early on. They talk about precocious children. Maybe you do know early on. It took me a while. Either way, you're born with that destiny. And what's fate's job? Fate's job is to act like a shredder, right? Fate does what it can, when it can, to derail you. That's its gig. That's its job. And to be honest with you, though fate takes full advantage at every turn, it's been my experience, takes full advantage at every turn to twist the screw in my back, it shakes out as it shakes out. Let fate do what it may, which is kind of ties it into segment number 2 and the tumultuousness of fate. Let fate do what it can. Because no matter what it does, it cannot derail you from your destiny without your permission. So a great way to practice is just to go, whatever it tries, I'll do it again. There'll be a silver lining. I'll get in there. It's a mixed bag of mental health in that we have great days and not so good days. We have great moments and not so good moments. Moments where destiny is winning and moments where fate is tightening the screw a little too much. And we pay attention to it for a moment. But the cool thing is, it shakes out as it shakes out. It is what it is. Thy will be done. The Tao follows its own path. So when we look at blending destiny and fate, then we can kind of get off our backs. If we have a day that doesn't go as smoothly as maybe some of our others, that's the blend. That's the uniqueness that is you. Doesn't need to derail us. Some days we're thrilled, some days we're chilled. What are you going to do? We don't want to be ambivalent because we know that ambivalence leads to apathy and then atrophy and then the amnesia that we talk about all the time. I will tell you that most of the unhappiness, since we're looking at the science of happiness, well, how about the science of unhappiness? I guess that wouldn't sell a lot of magazines if we had one that called The Science of Unhappiness, but what say you and I look at that for a minute? The science of unhappiness is a very simple one. It simply means, at its core, you've forgotten who you are. You've forgotten who you are. And of all the natural resources you possessed the moment you got dropped here. That's what unhappiness is. You want a companion to the human mind? Remember who you are. No amnesia, no blind spots. Because when you and I remember who we really are, we're not busy running around trying to achieve. We're not buying into binge thinking. We dig silver linings. We know that our destiny is etched in stone. Fate's going to do what it can to sandblast away, power wash away our destiny, but it can't happen without our permission. Just can't happen. I think of Buddha sitting under the tree. I think of Jesus, 40 days and 40 nights in the desert. Without Buddha's permission, none of the craziness going on around him was able to take effect. Without Jesus' permission, there was nothing Satan could say to him in the desert that was going to amount to a hill of beans. Because Buddha and Jesus both decided, I'm not going to be a co-conspirator to all the evil buzzing around me. Where does it say in the book I'm supposed to be a pincushion and let these pins get in? And when you look at how they handled themselves, they knew their destiny. They knew what fate would try, that fate was going to twist the screw in their back. Thinking, well, it's going to shake out the way it's going to shake out. My destiny is my destiny. I'm not going to let you or anyone else derail it. So how about you and me? What are some of the times in the past where you've let someone, a circumstance, an outcome, a person, you've allowed them to twist the screw in your back? You've allowed them to temporarily derail you from your destiny. That you've fallen for fate's trick and it's knocked you off your foundation. What are some of those examples? If you still, as I hope you are, keeping your logbook, your journal, your fingerprints of Providence blotter, write down in there, what are some of those times where you've allowed fate to derail you? Because in the true mixed bag of mental health, sometimes we're derailed by fate simply so we can find a silver lining. We never have to buy into this concept of I have to be perfect all the time. We don't have to buy into a concept of being perfect any of the time at all. All we can do is channel our all-natural being in the moment. No matter what happens, when you fall back on who you already are. We've talked before about all-natural intellect and the artificial intellect. I got a couple of texts the other day about the DJ, the definition of consciousness being the DJ. If a song pops up that you don't like, sweep it off. Tune it out. I don't remember whether there was a skip button, but I most certainly remember jukeboxes. If you put a coin in and the wrong song came up, you were able to hit a skip button. Same works in your mind. Sometimes your mind remember who's the DJ. Other times the ego goes, oh, don't worry, you take a break, smoke them if you got them. I'll run the turntables here. Then you and I, right? We know the difference, yes, between having our mind as a sanctuary or an asylum. So on those days where we let fate derail us temporarily, in the end, when it brings us back to the silver lining, that's good for our mental health. The ups, the downs, the lefts, the rights, the pivots, the swerves. All of the things in the labyrinth. The tragedies, the triumphs, the cataclysms and the celebrations. All the collections, all the unravelings. When we embrace all of that, looking at it as the yin-yang, of the duality between destiny and fate, flip sides of the same coin, there's really no reason to get down on ourselves. Because to truly have a penetrating insight into who you are, to have a truly optimized outlook, you know, you and I are a blend. We're good and bad. We're hot and cold. We're whatever we are is whatever we are. So we don't have to beat ourselves up over not being perfect. Sometimes destiny pulls ahead. Sometimes fate pulls ahead. And that's why I called it the mixed bag of mental health. All right, so the anaerobic aphorism for today, posted yesterday on Facebook, failure is the footbridge to success. So I have found a way, this is a little bit of my autobiography, as I'm going to tell you, and we got about 25 minutes, I guess. We don't have enough time to go into a couple of occasions, most notably and most recently, my encounter just outside Mexico City. But let's do this. Over the next couple of days, I'll make sure we get back to that so you know exactly what I'm talking about. But for now, I wanted just to kind of share the way I look at it. Most people know by now, I talk about the carrot at the end of the stick. My philosophy is to magnify the moment. Anti-goals, anti-longing, anti-motivation. Just being excited in the moment for whatever the moment kicks up. I think it was Booker T. Washington that says, drop your bucket where you are. Right? We drop your bucket where you are. Bend over right now and grab wherever you're standing. So that's why when I say my compass is a magnifying glass, it's because the only thing that I use to chart my course are those things going around, buzzing around me, going on around me right now. My compass is a magnifying glass because I don't fall for the allure of a distant horizon. I want to see what's in my headspace, what's in my probability space right in this particular moment. So instead of being intoxicated, which is why as a subtitle I call this the sobriety of focus, because it's intoxicating, it's alluring, it's a drug to be hooked on memories or fairy tales or fantasies about the future. It's a drug. Because it's so much easier to remember the good times in the past, or hope, or pray, or beg, or long, or pine for some fantasy in the future. But real sobriety comes from showing up in the moment, giving it our undivided attention. And the benefit for that, when we do that, is that there really isn't a failure. When we take into this moment, this very moment, the idea of dropping our bucket where we find ourselves, that this moment has something to teach us, that this moment is called upon to exercise our minds in such a way that we'll have a silver lining if we fall for fate, or we'll make the A list if we're not derailed from our destiny. Whatever the moment holds, it holds. So there's really no way to fail. Failure is when we set a carrot at the end of the stick. Now, as we talked about over the last couple of days, it's a blend. Just like the duality of destiny and fate, this is the special sauce for your goal-setting programs. If I can't talk you out of a goal-setting program, then give me 1/72 of your day, 20-minute victory, to do nothing more than go, let me see. Today was a perfect example. Technically, yesterday was the perfect example. But when I ran over bought the Time magazines because someone had said to me, hey, got to go and get this Time magazine. Fantastic. Even sent me a picture of it. Thank you very much. Sent me a picture of it so I wouldn't miss how it looked in the stand, in the magazine rack. Now, I could have said, oh, no, I'm not going to get that because for tomorrow's show, I'm planning gabing, 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 gabing. That, to me, would have been a failure. Because I had a future plan for something that the universe provided for me right in that particular moment. So for me, that's the exciting part. That's the sobriety of focus, is I don't get caught up in the intoxications of memory or fantasy. We stay in this moment. We show up in this moment. Because when we magnify the moment, it holds a mirror to who we truly are. The poise, the balance, the equilibrium, the boldness. That makes you a rare breed. To stay sober, to buy into the now, as opposed to the addictive qualities of memory and fantasy. So what do? We're sober in the moment. We're sober when we tap into the truly unimaginable power of living in this moment. Makes it a pretty cool gig. Makes us adventurous. Remember, something about to happen. So whether there are setbacks or leaps forward, whether there's regression or progression, downturns or upswings, whatever there is, when we embrace this moment, it really does. Well, people say, why do you call it a rare breed? Well, because it really does require a strong constitution to ignore the call, the allure, going on outside of this particular moment. Forget that it's wildly popular to do so. Everybody and their brother running around, buying into the sense of the ego where it's going to be over, it's going to be better over here. It's going to be better back there. We buy into that disease. Instead of magnifying the moment, lighting a candle is a psalm, appreciating all that you are right now in this instant, we get caught up. I was reading what was it the other day? They called it the disease of me. The disease of me is when the ego takes over, when the ego becomes the DJ. Because then you get called out of this moment. It embellishes. That's all it has. That's all the ego has. That and blind spots. All the embellishments. Oh, it'll be better if you just leave the now. That works unless you look at some of the other stories that were in The Science of Happiness. Then we say the only way you can really be happy is in this particular moment. You can't plan on smiling in an hour. There might be something that catches you off guard and makes you smile right now, but you can't plan doing it. Ego counts on fraud. When you're trying to stay focused, it's trying to sell you a fraud. Ego plays both sides of the fence, too. Think about it. Because on one side, it offers you your blind spots. And on the other side of that coin, playing both sides of the fence, it offers you its embellishments. So it does what it can to blind you from your all-natural being. And when you're moving that way, it does what it can to embellish the future, to call you outside of that particular moment. Poised or paralyzed, it's up to you. Poised, all-natural being. Paralyzed, falling for the ego's craziness. It's totally up to you. And that's the beauty of all-natural being. You get to decide. That's the beauty of knowing that your consciousness is nothing more than a DJ. It picks what it's going to focus on in the moment. That's all it does. So ask yourself, and you write it down in your book. When you write it down in your journal, in your logbook, What is it about you that makes you special? What is it that makes you special? What is it in this moment that you feel is your sacred duty? And by sacred duty, it doesn't have to have a spiritual aspect. What is it about you that makes you special? Because if you're here, you're special. If you're here, you're to do something. If you're here, you have a destiny. Right now, in this moment, what are you here to do? Because every moment is an ecosystem. Every moment is a Rosetta Stone. Every moment allows you to discern, to detect, to decipher the fingerprints of providence. And it's my experience, hands down, no two ways about it, my experience, that when you focus on the evidence, the clues, the things that bubble up in this moment, you're going to be on the right path. And when you acknowledge the power of the moment, it provokes the moment. When you're in awe of who you are, that provokes the moment. Because it realizes, in that instant, you and the moment are one. When you bring your grit, it grabs your attention. We only need motivation when our mind wanders. We only need motivation when our mind forgets who it ultimately is. So the heads up, how do we get through the labyrinth? When we're hooked on the moment at hand. When we pay attention to the excitation of this particular moment in all of time. Now, that doesn't mean that from time to time, right, we talk about the golden mean. From time to time, it's okay to go, nah, you know what? I'll take a little break. I don't mind an intoxicating memory. I don't mind an intoxicating fairy tale or two. We're not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We're not going to do this all cold turkey. Every so often, I like the taste of a carrot. Nothing to beat yourself up over. Because that, too, is the duality. We talk about dovetailing your heart and your head. There's a duality between those two mindsets as well. A percentage between your all-natural intellect and your artificial intellect. And when I say, have no dreams, it means that I'm saying, simply have the courage to see what dawns on you right now. Make your compass a magnifying glass. Stay sober and in the moment. That's the key. That's the key to life. That's the key to hearing your calling. When we talk about vision, you hear all the time about a vision quest. Every moment is a vision quest. Every single moment you and I are alive, there's time for us to figure out our soul's cipher. It takes an intrepid soul. It takes a rare breed to when they see something, they own it. They take the insight at hand and they make it their own. Yourself, your soul, it doesn't need any help. It already knows what it's here to do. And the cipher is uncoded one step, one investigation, one fingerprint of providence at a time. That's why you can't jump into all natural being. It's tiny. You know, when you see on National Geographic, archaeologists are removing, let's say you're unearthing a skeleton of a dinosaur, right? They don't get with a jackhammer as they get down close. They go with little tiny brushes, brush away some of the sediment. What's the same when it comes to your all natural being? It's a duality. The magnifying glass highlights our destiny, where we would keep our focus. But it's okay if sometimes we decide to go after the carrot at the end of the stick. That's the blend we were talking about yesterday. So the key to all natural being, the key to that metric, is that sometimes destiny wins, and other times fate wins. But at the end of the day, if you're grateful for all of those things, at the end of the day, you can bring it all back to a sobriety of a focus in the moment, then you win. And that's what life is about. It's about the winning. And I hear people say, oh, well, you know, I've got, this is wrong with me, or I've had this bad thing happen to me, or I'm not that smart, or I'm not that strong, or I'm not that lovable. Well, I talk all the time about all natural being. It's my hope that it makes you look in the mirror and go, I'm under new management. I'm going to transform my life. Because I believe you deserve better. If you're hurting, if you're unhappy, if you're unfulfilled, if you're unsatisfied, I think you deserve better. I think you ought to shift your attitude and your self-appraisal skills. Because there is nothing wrong with you. Again, your self-appraisal skills might suck, but that's a function of your attention. That's a function of your autobiography, the stories that you've been telling yourself to date. But it's not your actual authentic self. Like cognitive, what are they? Your clogged arteries. If you have a clogged artery in the heart, we've got the same thing happening to us in our minds. There's a congestion. That congestion leads to amnesia. So the key to being happy, this Hold On magazine here, Science of Happiness, the key to being happy is to remember who you are. Have a robust sense of self-reverence. To find your sacred duty. Give your message the Midas touch, since we're going down that mythological path right now. When we talk about fearless ingenuity, doing what it takes in the moment to be creative, because that's what creative is. Creative is looking at something that's never existed before, that's all, and doing it differently. But if we go into the moment with these preconceived notions, if we go into a moment as a human having to get this, I have to get this out of the moment in order for me to be successful. If we go in not thinking there's going to be a silver lining, if we go in right away fearing the tumultuousness of the moment at hand, if we go in not believing in the duality of destiny and fate, that mental health, in order to have mental health, I've always got to be optimistic. I always have to be focused on my goal. And I know you've heard me say that sacred cows have the best tasting meat. But every so often, the carrot at the end of the stick may not be for you. Not just change your attitude, but to optimize your outlook. And you do it by replacing your compass with a magnifying glass. You do it with the focus of the moment. Everything else cuts us off from who we are. And I've probably said this before. You look at the incidences of road rage and they say, oh, they're increasing. And I think it's because the more and more we learn about happiness, fulfillment, success, the more and more we learn about these things, we realize we're cutting ourselves off from what we already have. Everything we've ever needed, we've always had. So that when someone's in a car and they cuts us off, we've had it up to here. We are ticked with being cut off. But we're really ticked at ourselves. You ask someone, oh, why'd you get so mad at the other driver? Oh, they cut me off. Why'd that make you mad? Well, because it's demeaning. They think they're better than me. They think they're special. They act as if I'm invisible. Whoa, wait a minute. So, cutting yourself off. As Maslow said, the quote, I think it was yesterday, maybe the day before, that the story of the human race is a story of men and women selling themselves short. So you're selling yourself short. You think other people are special, that you're not deserving of this happiness, this fulfillment, this success, all those other things. They act as if you're invisible, so you're treating your all-natural being as if it's invisible. And then we wonder why road rage, in fact, does that, why it enrages us. Because we're tired of cutting ourselves off. We're tired of demeaning ourselves. We're tired of being the co-conspirators that force our souls to be on the sideline. So for 20 minutes today, just 20 minutes, 1/72nd of your day, what if you turned in your compass for a magnifying glass? And you go, for 20 minutes, I'm going to be sober. I'm not going to get all fired up with memories of the past or fantasies of the future. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to stay focused in this moment. I'm going to magnify the moment. And it's my belief, as you know, that when you do, you'll begin to reconnect with your all-natural being. And then you won't have to take my word for it anymore. You're going to feel it in your own heart. You're going to know. You'll be dialed in. Other people call, what's in their right mind? It's the difference. Well, the term dementia is Latin for out of one's mind. When you're dialed in to your all-natural being, you're back in your right mind. And when that happens, that part of you stands up and goes, wait a minute. It's as if being drawn back into your right mind magnetizes both your focus and your soul. And then the two are drawn to each other. So think about it for today. 20 minutes. Be your own best friend. Kick it off with a 20-second victory. Breathe in, exhale, scan the horizon, take action. Quick recap before we got to go. We don't always have to be a human getting. We can accept that the thrill of life has everything to do with the tumult that life is. That there really is a silver lining in any attempt of fate to try to derail us. And that embracing both the good and the bad, our shadows and our sunlight, that's the mixed bag of mental health. And again, before I have to run, turn your compass in, surrender it, leave it, pick up a magnifying glass. Let yourself go to the pull of the moment, the magnetic pull of the moment. Feel the truly unimaginable power of living in this present moment, and you'll be very happy you did. And then, at the end of that 20-minute victory, you won't have to take my word for it. You'll be taking your own word for it. All right, we're getting ready to run. Looking forward to hanging out with you again tomorrow morning. please, allnaturalbeing.com. Stop on over, send me an email. I'll send you one back. We'll hook up there. Don't forget, facebook.com/Brian Brawdy official as well. No, that wasn't a skip. That was me just trying to get my mind to catch back up. Very meaningful show to me today. I'm kind of grounded in this concept of your personal annuity and what you get when you tap in your all-natural being. Because happiness, it shouldn't take a 100-page magazine to tell us what makes us happy. We already know what makes us happy. It's in our heart. And we settle down long enough to learn those lessons within our own soul. When we crack our soul's cipher, then happiness is like, well, duh, of course I'm happy. All right, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. Have an absolutely fantastic day. If you need me for anything, go ahead and reach out. Once again, as I've said, allnaturalbeing.com. We'll hook up there. Have a fantastic day. I look forward to hanging out with you tomorrow.
You've been listening to All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy.
Join us live every Monday through Friday, 7 to 8 a.m. Eastern.
Also, check us out around the clock at allnaturalbeing.com.
Until then, always remember to bring your own bold.
IPMNation.com.